Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to the Grindmen Bros podcast, where I fill you in on what's been happening of late in the news of politics and culture. I'll be talking about a conversation today, I'll be talking today about a conversation I had with a buddy about gun control. I'll be talking about the primaries and midterms, and I'll be talking about ideology. So it should be fun. If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button and share this with your friends, and thank you for listening. So let's hop right back in. So the midterms. And, okay, so the midterms are coming up in November. And the primaries just took place the other day, June 14th, in Nevada, North Dakota, and South Carolina. And MAGA candidates are still winning overwhelmingly. At least it's overwhelming to Democrats. Joey Behar on The View, along with the other dummies on The View, shook their heads in denial this past week when another lady said a red wave was coming. It was embarrassing looking, and it gave me a chuckle because these dumb nasty women on The View, they look terrified at the notion that Republicans might dominate, and it's some of the best television I've seen in a while. These women have said some of the most ridiculous things in the past. Joy Behar said recently that when black people get guns, only then will we see meaningful gun legislation. And she said this to a group of black people, by the way. What a racist thing to say. At least half of the black population already have guns. So, I mean, it's a ridiculous notion. These people are so disconnected, these TV personalities. And what right do they have to be slinging legislation when they're clearly morons? Forgive me, but but so we don't need your stupid unthought suggestions. Like most Americans, black Americans also agree with the Second Amendment. And as for Whoopi Goldberg, by the way, as far as speaking of them saying stupid stuff, she said that Hitler wasn't racist. Plus, her movies are garbage. They're delusional. They really are. But back to the primaries. All right, so off my rant with The View. I watch it so you don't have to. But back to the primaries. So my wife and I went and voted on Tuesday. I hope you did. The latest elections were in the states of North Dakota, Nevada, and South Carolina, like I said. The lady at the precinct, when we went up there to vote, told us that so far only 92 people had voted that day, I guess, in my area, in my district. I'm not sure if that's total or if it was the sum of that very day. But the amount of registered voters in my district were like 1,100 or something. So, scary and disappointing. It's okay though. We got to do better on that. And the results ended up showing low turnout. The sad thing is it's probably normal to have low turnout for primaries and midterm elections. People usually only pay attention to the main elections, every 4 years. But come on, South Carolina, let's get it together. But, I mean, think about it. There are 330 million Americans, yet in the 2020 election, some 160 million people voted. That's less than half, and it was a historical voter turnout also. So, anyway, the South Carolina primaries were not all that bad, and actually the primaries throughout all those states, it was pretty much a sweeping win for MAGA candidates for the most part. South Carolina, like I said, was a little bit of a mixed bag. But Russell Fry in South Carolina, congressman, running to be congressman, beat Congressman Tom Rice in South Carolina. And this happened because Tom Rice was one of the Republicans who voted to impeach Trump after January 6th. So let that be a warning to the establishment. And as you know, we've been talking about of late, there have been many attempts to disqualify America First candidates by both the Democrats, their donors, and GOP establishment Republicans. And some of these attacks have been successful. Ryan Kelly of Michigan was arrested in correlation to the January 6th claims of insurrection. He never went into the Capitol. They just had a picture and they think it's him or something. And I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. It's ridiculous either way. Hold on. Okay, it's worse than that. Look, the FBI raided this politician's home, and it was all over misdemeanor charges. This is crazy. I mean, why isn't the FBI coming after parents? Why is the FBI coming after parents at school board meetings and arresting political officials over petty nonsense while the Democrats and Antifa riot, Democrats, encourage Antifa riots and Antifa can go burn down cities? Why are they looking into January 6th instead of looking into the insurrection on May 29th? How about that? 2017, when Black Lives Matter tried to burn down the White House and was successful and burning down a historic church near the White House. They had to take Trump into a bunker. Go look it up. And the media laughed at him for it. These people are ignorant and they're evil. And they're doing this because, well, the justice system is all but broken, and they want power. So get out there and vote, guys. We gotta make sure that these institutions and this government-swayed institutions can't hold power over we the people. This from MSNBC, talking about the arrest and its effects on his own Ryan Kelly's campaign. Excuse me. Oh, yep. But yeah, from MSNBC, talking about the arrests. They say, and this is actually not bad, they say it's looking like the arrest is actually an asset for Kelly. According to local media reports, the arrest has inspired influential Republicans in the states to rally behind him. High-profile Michigan Republicans, including state GOP Chairman Ron Weiser, who criticized law enforcement's handling of Kelly's case, rightfully so, I believe, and dozens of his supporters gathered outside a federal court building in Grand Rapids for his initial court appearance. The Detroit News reported on Thursday that crowd also included a Republican candidate for Michigan Attorney General, the state's top law enforcement official. Yeah, that's right, we did. There you go. The Attorney General. All right, so, good. Do you see, Joy Behar? Do you see it, Whoopi Goldberg? The machine that you are a part of that has peddled the delusional narrative that people who voted for Trump are insurrectionists is failing. The beast is dying, and the people are cheering for it. This is the dying beast trying to hold on to its power, and it's losing. Good news on that front. I think that the Democrats need to, and Joy Behar and Whoopi, they need to go ahead and build their arcs, or whatever, because I don't think it's going to be a red wave. It's going to be a red flood. Yeah. And I hope so, because all indicators are pointing towards their annihilation. The American people are pissed. But to finish up, it really makes me wonder where the mindset of South Carolinians are, or the rest of America too, for that matter. Because here's what you get, and it's obvious. They're pushing it on us so hard. It's obvious. I mean, if you're voting for Democrats, you're voting for total energy dependence from enemy nations. We know Biden in his campaign promises said that he was going to get rid of big oil and gas. And he's doing it, so don't be surprised that this is happening. This is what he said he was going to do, and y'all that voted for it, you voted for it. But if you vote for Democrats, you're voting for higher taxes. You're voting for transgender ideology being taught in K through 12 schools. You're voting for a radical environmentalist agenda. You're voting for wide open borders. Nay, the continuation of wide open borders, because that's already the case. If you vote for Democrats, you're voting to pack the Supreme Court and end the filibuster. You're voting to have your guns taken and given to the bad guys. You're voting for a multicultural democracy and not a constitutional republic. The once great American experiment dies. Now, I know you're saying, okay, I'll just vote for Republicans. Well, the problem is, it's not that simple. We know all too well what the Republicans are capable of, which ranges from sending us into the first war they get a whiff of or want to take part in, or being obstructionists and doing absolutely nothing. The Republicans are just Democrats doing the speed limit, as I've heard it said, and it rings true. Vote out the evil, vote out the establishment, and drain the swamp. So, I wanted to talk about this conversation that I had with a friend. And this just goes to show, the average person, they mean good, but sometimes things are done out of just a reaction, a knee-jerk reaction. Sometimes things are not well thought through, and sometimes people place their vote in things that they don't necessarily agree with just because of a slogan or a buzz phrase. And you've heard me talk about that before. But so I have a friend who I was talking to about the red flag laws that Lindsey Graham in South Carolina and others are trying to implement in South Carolina, and honestly, they want it across the whole state. Across all states, federally. And they're working on that right now. But by the way, call Lindsey Graham and tell him no on red flag laws. That number is 202-224-5972. That's 202-224-5972. Okay, so this friend said he was okay with more gun laws, and I was taken back because this dude has guns, We've talked about guns a lot before, but anyway, but we ended up getting into the push by radicals and reactionary Republicans and good, caring, regular people like him to move the age to buy an assault rifle to 21. He's for it. I'm against it. This from NBC News. As lawmakers press ahead with bipartisan negotiations on gun legislation, advocates are urging them to include a provision that would increase the minimum purchase age nationwide for firearms like the ones used by 18-year-old gunmen in Uvalde, Texas, and Buffalo, New York. Federal legislation on that front would mean raising the minimum age from 18 to 21 for buyers of long guns like semi-automatic rifles. On what grounds? Semi-automatic. Okay, semi-automatic. That means every rifle that shoots one bullet per trigger pull. Well, semi-automatic means one bullet per trigger pull, which is basically every gun that you buy. You can't get an automatic rifle, and if you can, it's not without a lot of paperwork, and you'd have to have the licensing to do it, and you just probably can't. It's just not that easy. I mean, money can get you whatever, but the majority of Americans would never be able to do that, and it's not legal to have an automatic weapon. This is the problem. People advocate for policies that they know nothing about, and all it takes is a tragedy and a buzz phrase like, do something, for people to give up their rights out of fear. So he doesn't think an 18-year-old should be able to purchase a rifle for any reason. And his logic was, anecdotal, I guess, to say. It was his experience, it was his life experience. He mentioned, and I'll be family-friendly about it, he said, I don't want some 18-year-old kid out there chasing girls and having a gun. I told him it sounded like he was reflecting, and I don't know what that has to do with moving the age to 21. I get what he's trying to say. He thinks it's a maturity issue, and I agree. But where I disagree with him is the assumption that policy would be able to solve the maturity problem. And it will not. I was like, dude, 18 is the legal adult age. What about fighting in war? What about your parents' legal rights over you as a minor? Can you imagine? Dude, just the logic's not there. But not to mention how many rights would be taken away from what he's advocating for doing. But he asked me, Chris, when do you think you had first become an adult? And I said, probably my mid-20s. He said, and so I asked him the same question, because I was trying to figure out what he's getting at. He said 25. And I was like, okay, yeah. I said, okay, so why do you want the age moved up from 18 to 21 and not 25? He didn't have an answer. By the way, you're already required to be 21. You already have to be 21 to buy a handgun, by the way, in South Carolina. Why is that? Well, it's because gun crimes are largely committed with handguns, not rifles. He said there are no laws against the sale of a gun from a citizen to another citizen in South Carolina. Yes, there are. It's the same ones you have to go past. But you can't knowingly sell a gun to somebody. If they go and commit a crime, you will be held liable for that. Good luck trying to act like you didn't know any better. It's a dangerous game. There's better ways to sell your guns. You know what I mean? If you're gonna sell your gun to a private individual, make sure you know who it is. Yeah, you can't sell to someone who wouldn't be able to pass the background check in the first place at a gun show or a dealer, who all have an FFL. That's a federal firearms license. So my friend was like, I know about guns, and I just think the age should be 21 to buy an assault rifle. But I asked him, what is an assault rifle? He said, it's an AR-15. I said, no, dude. AR stands for Armalite, not assault rifle. Common mistake. It's the name of the manufacturer. An assault rifle, by the way, is a selective fire rifle. If you want to know what an assault rifle actually is, it is a thing. Was a thing. Is a thing, but you can't have one. Not really. An assault rifle is a selective fire rifle that has been banned since 1934 due to its automatic fire capabilities. It's a selective fire. You can pick automatic, you can pick semi-automatic. Or maybe, yeah. So, anyway, so spare me, because you're wrong. He didn't even know what an assault rifle was, but he assured me that he knew a lot about guns. Classic mistake. Well, I mean, think about this. What if I created a bill for, this gets to do with the language, too. This is why the whole assault rifle thing ticks me off, because even people that know about guns don't know about this stuff, and they will vote for things that'll end up screwing everybody over, like legally, lawful, law-abiding citizens. What if I created a bill for the outlaw of hand grenades, but instead, and maybe they are outlawed, I'll have to go look into that. But instead, what if I wrote in language, and instead of saying hand grenades, I wrote into the bill, we hereby declare all palm-sized boom balls illegal. you know, and everybody's, yay. Well, what the heck does that mean, you know? This is the problem with language and legislation, you know? And when they can't make the legislation, you know, or when they can't change the law, they try to change the language. And look, maybe you didn't know that either, and that's fine. You know, I'm not trying to rag on people too much. I just want people to know what they're talking about before they advocate for things. But I'm glad you're listening, because you too could be my friend walking around thinking they're supporting the right thing out of emotion or lack of knowledge. We're all susceptible to mistakes, but don't let flawed logic dictate an unholy amount of chains for you to carry, you know? He mentioned background checks, and, you know, I was looking into that, and yeah, look, I don't have all the answers. The problem is it's a slippery slope. You know what I mean? And red flag laws is what they want to implement to catch these background, you know, mental background, like the mental capacity to own a gun, you know, for people, so they can go look on people's Facebooks, or they can have an ex-wife call in and say, hey, I think my husband's dangerous. You should take his guns. And they'll, yeah, okay, they will. They want to do that anyway. They've already said it, you know? So that's the slippery slope with the mental background checks. And look, I don't have all the answers. I'm sure there's solutions, but that's not the solution. You know, raising it to 21 is not going to help for mental, you know, not help, you know, the mental issues, you know, for buying a gun. But like I said, I don't have all the answers, but I'll say this, and I said this to my friend, the problem isn't policy. It's not because we need more laws on the books, and we know more laws mean less individual freedoms. And in the case of guns, it means more crime and more tyranny. We know from history that a well-armed citizenry is a strong one. We know that if we let them continue to strip our Second Amendment rights, they will only continue further, and we, the people, along with the Republic, will fall. The problem is culture. You see, for too long we've been destroying the values that made this nation great and replacing it with debauchery and hedonism. We replaced logic with emotion, wisdom for foolishness, and we've heralded the villain and bastardized the hero. If we want kids to grow up in a safer world, it's not the guns we go after. It's the bad ideas. And moving on, speaking of bad ideas, you know, as you can tell, I have a problem with bad ideology. I mean, you know, I have a problem with bad ideas. I have a problem with bad people. And yes, they do exist, despite what the bleeding heart liberal or the leftist mind likes to think. People are not naturally good. I have a problem with bad religion. I have a problem with bad food, bad movies, bad law. And bad ideology really umbrellas and fosters all of those that I just mentioned, or is the outcome, therefore, of. But bad ideology leads to the regression of human wisdom, human dignity, and human worth. And not to mention, it's killed countless people. People are often not aware of what they subscribe to or how to critically think. In fact, most of us were put in front of programmed television or video games or phones for the majority of our lives, and it equals a disconnect from reality. We're seeing the effects of that now, especially when values have been executed, but they've been excused as something to be self-determined and not morally rooted in the divine, you know, say, or something higher. You know, something higher that says, you know, we have inalienable rights that we can recognize between each other. The left doesn't recognize that. But we can get into that another time. I wanted to give some advice on critical thinking so that you can eliminate unnecessary suffering, hopefully. I like to think of it like this. The ideologies... So these bad ideologies, they're like, or just ideologies in general, you know, and thinking, critical thinking, I suppose would be a better way to say it. It's like a bubble. When popped, everything on the inside of the bubble becomes part of what's on the outside of the bubble, right? The bubble's no longer protecting it, and it's space, you know? This is kind of what happens when you allow yourself to think deeper. You know, you get to expand, you know, you get to explore further, you know? But when you consider whatever the structure that you have in place, you have to consider whether it will stand the test of time, or the test of reality itself, really. Alternatively, you can stick with your structure, having done no poking or prodding to it, and stand on it no matter what, while closing your eyes, putting your fingers in your ear, and sticking out your tongue. But nothing lasts forever, and that bubble will be popped. Those who test their structures pop the bubbles willingly, often with a great deal of discomfort, but minor in the long term. That's the good news. But those who wait until the bubble has no more capacity inside of it, eventually the bubble breaks violently. You can think of it like a balloon versus a tire filled over its capacity. The balloon is loud when it pops, but virtually no damage, or at least no long-lasting damage. But the tire that's rated for 45 psi and is filled with 200 psi eventually meets a nail, or the straw breaks the camel's back in one way or another, and the results in that case are much more likely to be catastrophic. This is critical thinking. Now, as I like to say, everything is a double-edged sword, and critical thinking can do plenty of damage to your psyche, say if you don't couple critical thinking with truth. See your nearest narcissist, if you need an example. So it's imperative, though, that when you critically think, that you're honest with yourself. If you can do this, you can tremendously reduce the innate negative effects of willing ignorance. And you can likely avoid experiencing a violent burst of your bubble. Thank you for having me today. Thank you for listening. I'm going to keep trying to push this stuff out as much as I can. I'm having a blast with it. It's been fun. I'm learning a lot. I hope that you are. Don't forget to stay involved, and don't forget to smash the like button. Don't forget to go subscribe and share this with your friends. Stay tuned, and good morning, good afternoon, good night. God bless.